let's get started. And Fig, thank you so much for joining us at the DaoLens Discord space. It is such a pleasure to host you. Cannot wait to learn from you. And thank you everyone so much for joining us. Please make sure that at the start of the session, feel free to drop in your questions in the chat. This is a great time to ask your questions to the guest in real time. So we take community questions towards the end, so let's get started. Fig, one of my first questions would be, everyone speaks about why they're passionate about DAOs, how much they love DAOs, the upside of it. But I think at DaoLens, we're really trying to figure out the problems, so that we can figure out the solutions. So I think in that context, even in your article, you've beautifully spoken about the upside of DAOs, right? It's great in diversity, having women, having non-binary people from multiple time zones, old, young, are living within forums. But one of the downsides of this life is that it seems like it's more of public service, because it's majority of the people are not able to, make enough money to be able to sustain a real lifestyle for themselves. Things like health insurance and having, if you lease a place, to show a proof of income and stuff like that. So I would kind of love for you to expand on this conversation, that how can we trim the hesitancy of more folks becoming involved, and especially what would be something that you'd like to say to the folks maybe working for traditional organizations like Twitter, Facebook, and Google, in the DAO space?
Yeah, I think kind of as you alluded to, the upside is really enticing, right? Just as you are getting compensated in early startups, you have equity and ownership in these organizations, and your incentives are to help grow it and make it more profitable, hopefully growing the value of the token at the same time. I would say we need greater security, right? For me to go work in a DAO, I'm probably giving up an opportunity elsewhere. And with that opportunity, there's certain insurances and assurances that, make life more comfortable, right? As you said, health insurance, proof of payment, like pay stubs, so you could sign a lease and get an apartment. They do a really good job with, other tools like HR and benefits and, communication tools like Slack or whatever it may be. So I think as we start to see more teams thinking about these problems and building solutions to integrate with DAOs, it will be a better contributor experience.
Absolutely. There are so many layoffs happening, and especially in a place like Twitter. A friend of mine has been working in a very great position there as an escalations officer. And she's just like, I just don't know what to do. Since the time Elon has come in, things have gone a little bit hayside. So I was like, why don't you go ahead and explore crypto? And there is this hesitancy, coming in crypto, because tech in general took such a hit. They are at hiring freezes and stuff, but I see there's so many crypto companies which are just hiring aggressively. So what would you say to someone who would come from Twitter, a really secure job? How is it that they get super involved in crypto today?
Yeah, I would say the pace of innovation is tech squared, right? That's why I got involved in crypto to start with. Every single day you are learning something new, and you will never know 100% about this industry. And to me, that's really intoxicating. I would also say that it's a lot riskier. Crypto is very much a risk asset, and it's further out on the risk curve. So you have to be comfortable with that. But if the macro environment is right and you have the right people working and thinking about this industry, it can be really exciting. I would say a lot of the same skills from tech to crypto carry over, but a lot of it's just about mindset, right? You have to be curious. You have to kind of want to be a problem solver. You have to believe in technology will create a better world. So Web3 and crypto is definitely kind of this new subset of technology that's trying to change the world.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love the fact that you said that every day one is learning something new, and you have to be super curious to be involved in the space. And yes, as much risky as it is, there's also a lot of upside, if you end up getting things right. So that's awesome. Sejal, on to you.
Yeah. Fig, I was just curious because we recently also, took a grant from Aave, right? We are one of the grantees where we are building an alternative UI for Aave, right? So when I was just going through the forum and the discussions, right? I came across this post by Shreyas where he was asking for, people who are interested in becoming a reviewer, right? So I'm just curious to know that, how do you really become a reviewer? Because I think it's a very interesting position to be in because you get to see so many applications, and these are not just applications, these are solutions to a problem, to how to grow the ecosystem, or maybe solving some sort of a problem, right? So it's a very interesting, I would say, work. But how do you really become one? I mean, I couldn't find that answer anywhere, so I thought I'll ask you.
Yeah, we need to do a better job of documentation. And I think, DAOs as a whole, big and small, like they can all benefit from more transparent and clear documentation. For my process, it was just to really raise my hand. Like I am a true believer in Aave and what they're building there. I think it's an incredible UX. I think it's a really good culture. And for me, I was like, all right, like this is something I'd love to do. I'd love to kind of help smaller teams that are looking to build or improve Aave and also looking to grow the crypto ecosystem at the same time. I think, why I was able to get it was kind of this idea of proof of contribution. In crypto, it's really clear to see if somebody's done the work, whether it's transactions on Etherscan, whether it's commits on GitHub, whether it's comments and replies on the forum. It's really easy to audit how much time I've invested in a certain community and what my views are, if I'm consistent, the quality of my work as well. So I think like anybody who's trying to get in a position, whether it's on the grants team or with a DAO full time, the first step is to contribute, to get your name out there so you can see your face and your name and your profile, and that just helps like kind of embed further in that community.
Yeah, I love that. I think what you said was so, spot on. That proof of contribution is absolutely, needed, and that is where we think that making a personal brand, right? Like it's anyway a general problem statement. How do you make a personal brand? But making a personal brand in Web3 is something that is so important for you to explore more projects, opportunities, and solve different problems, right? But I think we'll come to it later, that how do you really build a personal brand. Devika has really interesting questions on that. But before we move on, I would just like to also ask, so as a reviewer, right, like as an applicant, we realize that there are a set of challenges that, or situations that have come that we have faced, which still need a lot of solutions. For example, getting community feedback, or different sort of things. When we actually started filling the application, we did not know, right, is there a standard, what our application should actually consist of, right? So that applicant side of thing. But I would love to know, like, what are the challenges of a reviewer, right? You receive, like, I don't know, hundreds of applications. How do you really, because you are not a subject matter expert on everything, right? And how do you filter, how do you really, things like, I know there are a lot of talks about how to manage this and all of those things. We are also exploring that problem statement, right? That is also where this question comes from. But how do you manage different things like keeping people accountable, and how do you measure the impact of the project? Different things, right? I'm pretty sure there's a set of challenges that you go through. So I would love to know, some of those, like what are those things that, or challenges, difficulties you face, and you think you wish there were solutions to those.
Yeah, so I'd say like I know this isn't surprising, but the workload is very market dependent. While the volume of grants we've been seeing is pretty sticky, which is great. Like there's definitely less now. I think that's just true of crypto as a whole. Like as it's hurting and there's more, restructuring, less people are willing to build. Um, I think one thing that I struggle with a lot is understanding the team and the trustworthiness, right? Like I can pretty quickly evaluate the efficacy of somebody's idea, right? Like, is this unique? Has this been done before? Can this benefit Aave? Can this benefit crypto? I think for me, it's how do I know this is the right team executing on it? Because a lot of times we'll actually see very similar applicants, proposals, right? They're trying to build analytics or they're trying to build a new governance UI, but how do I understand and audit from just a written application, right? Like for me, when I evaluate people or just think about problems in life, like the best way for me to do that is actually to speak with humans. Like speaking with you guys now, I know you're like nice people. I know you are real. So I think trying to incorporate that into applications is like a great first step.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, right? How do you really make sure that people are trustworthy? And also one of the things, right, that I feel is the case that, how do you really, sorry, just a second. How do you really, this is just somebody else's iPad, I'm very sorry for this, but yeah, back to it. One of the things that I keep thinking is that what today Aave needs as a solution, it also keeps evolving, right? The problem cannot be same. Maybe today's certain sense of, maybe there's a problem or there's a challenge that the protocol faces or that people pick up that this is the solution we want to build for, right? But it also evolves, right? Like the evaluation that you do has to be evolved. I'm not sure if I'm making sense or are you getting my question, right? But like, how do you do that? Like, for example, maybe today it needs a better UI, or I don't know, just an example, right? But 3 months, 4 months down the line, there's some else, the need is something else, or all of that. So how collectively, decide that what is needed, because it has to be collective, right? Like one person feels that protocol needs this, maybe somebody else feels this, the protocol needs this. How does that collective, evolution of the problem happens? This made sense or not? Just came to my mind.
Yeah, no. I think we try to do a really good job of hiring for different, skill sets, right? Like, so I'm definitely more fundamental, but we also have, some great developers, right? Like we have Ernesto from Board Ghost Development, who's the previous CTO at Aave. We have David Trong, who was one of the first 10 employees at Aave.
Yeah, David is the one who we spoke
David's
to.
great. David's great. And then we have people like Bill, who's more of the community side, right? He really understands like coordination and people. And so I think we're trying to do a good job of representing across different skill sets and expertises. And then also just delegating work when it comes to it, right? Like there's been a lot of applications that I've read. I'm like, dude, this seems cool, but I have no fucking clue what they're doing. Like, hey, David, like, mind checking this out or kick it over to Ernesto. So I think, you have to become more thoughtful and learn along the way. Like, we also have to be really diligent about processes and willing to kind of say like, oh, maybe I'm not the best fit, or maybe I don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And before I give it to Devika, I think just one thing that I'm now remembering, I heard this from Ken from Uniswap. He always says that the whole grants thing is like dating. It's two ways. It's not just the protocol or the people assessing whether they need this. Even the applicants, right, who are applying, they need to assess whether they want the money from here or not. Because a lot of times, right, it also sometimes pushes you to move away from the core values. But that's a separate conversation, but super interesting. I have so many questions again coming up. But Devika, over to you.
Thank you. Fig, I've been reading your articles and I actually love the way they're so easy to understand and how much of your heart it echoes. And I want to talk about the human side of things, right? Like you quoted that in a world full of smart contracts, it's important not to ignore humans. So like you said, most of it seems like such a public service in DAOs. Most people working in DAOs are not making workable incomes. So how do you keep your members motivated?
Um, yeah, that's like a great question. I think a lot of people are dealing with right now, especially as not as lucrative. Like, I think the easiest way is to find like value-based alignment, right? Like, what do I care about? What are my priorities? Is it, creating a more open and fair financial system? Is it creating products that can actually compete with like Web 2 and do so in a seamless way? Is it, be environmentally friendly and, think about carbon credits and redemptions? There's kind of different options for each of those different like value sets. For me, like it's very much like, how the fuck do we make the best product that can kick Web 2's ass? Like, that's what I think about, and that's how I think we're actually, you get new users and become successful as an industry. And for that, like I very much have like aligned with Aave. And there's also kind of all these different other choices, right? Like, do you think about DeFi? Are you more passionate about NFTs? Like, are you more social? Like, there's social DAOs that are cropping up left and right.
Yeah.
Music, I think we'll actually start to see like kind of these curation DAOs where, if you guys have really good taste in music, you can curate a music DAO and get rewarded for these playlists or collections.
Yeah.
So I think, well, the pay, like, it will come and it is there in some senses. Like, the best way is just to find something you're passionate about. After that, and once, like, it's developed product market fit, I think a major priority is actually like compensating these people. Because that's what makes it sticky. That's what makes people come back. That's true incentive and alignment.
Absolutely. But so much of the motivation you spoke about is like, how you are driven, and it's a lot of like intrinsic motivation, having that ownership mentality. But is it something specific in Aave that you do to make sure that your members are motivated, that they're sticking, that they're coming back?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think like in Aave, we're really lucky because it's been an older project and that, they've kind of gone through these cycles before and there's still a lot of people that are still there. I know we've probably unfortunately lost some great minds as well. One, I'd say just like keep it real. Like,
Yeah.
I think so many times people try to be really elaborate and complex in their language and now they write and the changes they propose, like nobody wants to do that, especially if you're not getting paid enough for it. Like, I do this shit full time and it's like exhausting, right?
Yeah.
And imagining people who are just kind of doing this part time on their own, like out of passion. You gotta keep it clean, like you gotta keep it simple. Yeah, I'd say that's an easy one. It's like simplicity. I'd say structure as well. Like I've kind of talked about that a lot. Like if it takes a lot of mental power for me just to understand how like governance works or how the product works, like I'm not going to really invest the time to deal with that.
Yeah.
But if I know, okay, every Tuesday there's going to be new proposals, I need to vote on Wednesday, like that's a lot easier for me to accommodate and, plan with consistency.
Absolutely. I love that answer on simplicity and structure. I feel like a lot of people make that mistake of even when setting up the Discord server, having hundreds of channels or having super complex language. It's so hard for a newcomer to, transition into it. Thank you so much for sharing that. Sejal, on to you.
Yeah. I was just thinking when you spoke about the reward thing. I think in one of the articles I read that you mentioned how compensation is, super important, and it doesn't really happen, especially in the whole, delegation thing, right? So, what do you think is the solution to this? Like, what sort of incentive structure, or do you have anything in your mind that should be there or can be built around it so that we can deal with the problems of voter apathy and all those things?
Yeah. Sorry. I'm sorry, my roommate's walking around, so I'm going on off camera quickly, but I think the best way is to actually make it worth people's time, right? Like whether it's a token-based competition because there's more upside, right? Like that's the best way to align incentives with the DAO, right? Like if I'm working in Aave, my goal should be to grow the value of Aave. It's to encourage more depositors to come on platform. It's to encourage more token holders. And then 3, for me, it's to make the token value greater. So I think, governance token-based competition is great. And then just keep it stable and consistent competition as well, right? Like it's super important to be able to count on some consistency, right? Like I'm not gonna leave my job if I know I can make $500 one day and then 14 grand the next week. People have families and people have different priorities that they're all kind of evaluating and juggling at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's super important, and that is one of the reasons it's just so difficult to get people to move forward. But that's a great point. But yeah, I'm just so many things that are happening, and there are actually real problems, right? It's just that you need to identify that, pick up, and see what works, what doesn't work, right? So that's amazing. Yeah, over to you, Devika.
Thanks. Figure want to talk about in your article, you were speaking about the risk of anonymity. And the example you shared over there was how Wonderland, there was this guy called 06 Sifu, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, a co-signer from Multisig, and who was previously convicted as a felon controlling almost 1/5 of the keys. And upon realizing this, his past life, it took 2 days to replace the signer. Yet previously, he yielded the power and influence to change the entire trajectory of the DAO. But there have also been brilliant people come out of this anonymity, like Banksy. So of course, it has its pros that you will never be judged on your age, gender, and religion. But I was wondering, how can we get past this conflicting issue? And you spoke about the solution to this was instilling accountability with the people who are anonymous, but how would one do that?
Yeah, it's super hard. I've started to see the benefits of anons, right? I think it leads to really candid discussion, which is important. It leads to people who are maybe more hesitant to engage to do that. Maybe somebody who has a conflict of interest elsewhere, maybe they have a job at a big company that says a non-compete, but under a non, they can actually engage on the side. That's a great way to onboard more talent into our communities. I've definitely opted for the other route. I think, having your face and name out there is a great way to actually build trust.
Yeah.
One of the most persuasive things is a smile, and you can't see that in an NFT PFP. And I know that's ironic because my Discord PFP is such, but on forums, I've been really intentional, and we've talked about personal branding, of just putting my face up there, right? I'm lucky as I'm okay with how I look, and I know not everybody has that same privilege, but I think people like yourselves, all right, this guy's probably normal. I'm happy to reach out, and I think that's really important for more collaboration, and just creating a more cohesive community. A lot of people I see on the forum are great, and I know a lot of them personally, but some I'm who the fuck is this? You know, and I have a lot of like, and maybe that's because I'm a natural skeptic, but it's a lot easier. Like, I think about it, okay, now you've really got me going. I apologize, but I think about it like a poker game, right? Like, how much can I learn from the player on the other table from me? Like, okay, I can see you guys are sitting. Um, it's dark outside, so I can make an assumption where you're from. I can see what you're dressed, so I can make an assumption of your education level and maybe how conservative you are. So maybe you're not gonna
It's just
bluff
cold
as
here.
often.
That's it.
It's pardon?
I'm saying it's just
Okay.
cold here, that's what.
Yeah. Right, but like, so I use that kind of similar mindset. Like, all right, how much can I think about what's the best way to communicate and like interface with these people? Like, okay, I can see Mark Zeller's probably a bit older. Maybe he's a bit more conservative, so I'm gonna be more thoughtful and include more punctuation in my responses. Like, or I can see like, you know, Penn blockchain is a bunch of college kids. I'm gonna be more casual and fun and like, you know, maybe throw in a few expletives here and there. Like, I think that stuff's really important just for like creating a stronger community and like actually like making people feel like warm inside and like people, like humans. Like, it can be really cold in forums, and my job is to like make people feel happy. So
Absolutely. I love that answer, right? Like creating a really warm and nice atmosphere that people feel safe to kind of relieve their identity. And it's just
just
that,
to feel themselves. Like, I think that's the beauty of like humans is there's nobody's the same, right? There's 8 billion different variations of us,
yeah.
and like we should celebrate that. Like, I benefit from learning different people and understanding how like different thought processes. Um, so I want to like, and maybe I'm being selfish because I want to learn more about those people, interact with those people more often.
I love
I
that.
want people to feel welcome.
When you were talking about comparing it to a poker game, I just thought, like, I don't know if you watched Sherlock. I just recently started watching it, and he talks about the science of deduction. That's almost like, you know, you see little things and try and assess and be like sus, kind of like sus the entire scene, sus people. I feel like so much of your job is just kind of that.
Yeah, I mean, my job is very political, and I think to do politics well, you have to understand kind of who you're going up against, but also who you're working with as well. And that can change, right? Like,
Yeah.
one week you guys may be competitive, the next week you may be an ally, right? Like,
Yeah.
but I think like for me to do it well is to kind of understand like these people, what they value, what's important to them, how they communicate, how they make decisions. So I can kind of play into that, right? Like, yeah, I could go on with all the analogies and like, you know, it's also like chess. Like, okay, if I ask this question, what are they most likely to ask next, right? Like, kind of trying to be 2 steps ahead, but that's a bit idealistic.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'd just say, like, please continue writing. I thoroughly enjoy your writing. And we, guys, you should check out our channel. I think it's called Today I Learned or Big Brain. We are changing some names in the channel, and we shared Fig's article. You must read it. Sejal,
Thank you so
on to
much
you.
for sharing. Yeah.
Oh, of course. It's a pleasure. Sage, on to you.
Yeah, I think I would just now love to know, how did you start? Right? I am pretty sure, what made you enter this space, when did you enter, and when you entered, like when I entered, I knew nobody, right? I knew nobody and I did not know where to start with, right? And I'm pretty sure that's a dilemma a lot of people face, right? Who want to enter and how do you go about it, right? So just talk to, I think I would love to know what that looked like, what was that journey like?
Yeah. I would say I was really lucky. As like I think timing in life is really important. And I was graduating school back in 2021, and the timing was very right. Like, I was interested in finance for the money, and tech for the innovation. And to me, I was kind of watching crypto grow on this side in terms of users and asset flows and valuations. And for me, I was like, all right, I'm lucky to be in a place to take some risk. And for me, I kind of thought crypto was a hybrid of the two. So I was like, all right, fuck it. Like, let's just try it. Fun. It's a first job after college. Like, this could go really well, or if it doesn't work, I'm still young and can kind of reset. So I started working at Voyager, which was, at the time, was a big brokerage firm where you could kind of earn yield on your different tokens, kind of like Celsius. Now a lot of people know it because it was one of the first big companies to go bankrupt. I never thought it'd go bankrupt. I knew there was issues, right? Like, it was very corporate to me, and there wasn't a lot of like crypto nativeness, which was like that wasn't what I was looking for. Like, I didn't join crypto to like be in a corporate company. I joined crypto to learn more and to kind of have like a more informal culture, but also like a lot of really deep thinking. So I was like, all right, I need to do something on the side or like find something new. So on the side, I started working at a quantitative hedge fund focused on DeFi. So we were doing a lot of yield farming when yield farming was still lucrative. And my role was to basically just find yield independent of networks or UI or tokens. Like, as long as we could kind of hedge our position, that was interesting. And that was really fun because it focused, like, I made a Discord. I jumped into different like DeFi like Discord channels. I asked questions. I understood kind of like the people who are working on these things and building these things on a daily basis. And then I was like, all right, this is sweet. Like, I gotta do more of this. So I started tweeting, which was really lucky. Like, somebody told me to just tweet, like pick something, and like he was great to kind of point me towards governance because he understood my personality. And so I started tweeting about governance, and I found Flipside, they were running a big $25 million proposal with Uniswap. I'm like, these guys are fucking crazy. Like, and it's never gonna work. Like, I'm gonna tweet about it. And although it actually did get, the majority of votes in favor and pass quorum, it didn't meet the yes to no threshold. So I started working. I applied to Flipside, and they're like, all right, we like how you fucking called us out. Like, you'd be a good fit here. And I started working there in October, and then just kind of got really down the rabbit hole quick. So.
Yeah. And one of the things I saw of it that you are also a scout at Steel DAO, right? And if I'm not wrong, like somewhere, yeah, you also interested in, VC space or, the whole investment side of things.
Yes. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the stream here. Hold on.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, here we are. Yeah, so Steel DAO, formerly known as like Bessemer DAO, is kind of an experiment of outsourcing deal flow and research in early stage, like investing to a group of really crypto native community members. So I think it's like 30 of us, 40 of us. We're all kind of involved in crypto different ways, whether it's full-time or as a hobby. We just kind of post interesting opportunities, and then they're evaluated and presented to Bessemer venture partners. Interesting thing is, like, if a company you present is accepted and invested, you actually get carry on that deal. So the incentive's really strong to post a good project. But yes, long answer short, I am interested in venture. I think it's a really unique industry. It's one of the few industries where you get paid to speak to people and spend other people's money.
Yeah, that I love that. That is why I really like this space, the amount of and the kind of people you meet, right? It's amazing, so interesting to see the problems that they're solving, and that's the whole job, right? I mean, who wouldn't want to do that?
I
Yeah.
think it's ballooned in popularity a lot just because of how much liquidity is in our world right now.
Yeah.
I think it will retrace a bit, but I think, people like yourself and I were realizing it's like, oh, that's fucking cool. You get to talk to like early stage founders and like you get to see the fastest and newest innovations in the space. And two, like if you do it well, the further up you are in the investing like curve or cycle, like the more equity you create, right? Like, if you look on returns, it's like angels, then VCs, then growth, then whatever, right? But like the further up you are on that cycle, the more money
Yeah,
it makes.
I love that. I mean, Devika, I'm so sorry. I know I'm just taking too much time. My last question, Fik, because we're just talking about this whole VC space. I'm very curious to know that, if let's say you are, scouting projects or looking on a lookout for founders, right, with good teams. Do you also think a time will come that where these you actually look out a person or you want to invest in someone which is like as they say it's going to be there's going to be a time where there will be one person companies, right? There's not going to be team. It's just going to be, let's say, maybe a creator, right? Like if you run a podcast, it's like running a company, right? One person companies. Do you think that pieces will also be interested? And I'm pretty sure I know there are some funds which are for like hustle fund and all those, but do you think all of these things are also going to come up, that where people are investing in one person companies or all those things?
Yeah, I think like a company is really a company is independent of people and personnel. It's their idea and their revenue model. That's how I think about a company, right? Like if you can do it well with one, or you can do it well with 10, kudos. Like just do it fucking well and figure out what structure is best for you. Like certain founders may work better in a more collaborative environment. Other founders may be really introverted and they like work best alone. So I don't think like looking at the people is like super important. Well, yes, people and like evaluating people and like establishing trust is so important. It's like also understand the idea, understand the vision and the reason like why they're working on it. Like what's the problem they're solving? How big is that problem? Is that problem growing or shrinking? So, yeah.
So interesting. Thank you so much, Faith. Like I've had so many questions and you've answered them so patiently. Thank you so much for that.
No, you're good. I apologize for maybe not being the most eloquent this morning, but I love the questions and I love what you guys have been doing over with Aave, and this is a cool project and community you're building. So thank you so much.
Over to you, Devika.
Of course, and Sejal, I absolutely love your questions. I think that was such a great question to ask around when VCs would start investing in individual creators. But Faye, we're not ending. We still have like 2-3 questions left. But when I asked you what made you say yes to the podcast, you spoke about that how the reach out message was so human-like, thanks to Sejal. But we also briefly spoke about the creator economy, and I could sense your passion around building a brand. So I just want to ask you, building a brand for yourself, how do you feel like that impacts the DAO space? Why are you passionate about it? And then I'd love for you to cover out how it impacts the DAO space.
Yeah, so I'm going to go a bit back to Segal's question and merge it with yours. I'd love to be able to invest in humans, right? I think right now, especially with the power of social media, there's some really interesting people that you can tell are doing well, right? Maybe they're a content creator and they're focused on a niche that hasn't been explored. Like, I'd love as an individual and a consumer and an audience member, like I'd love to be able to invest in them before they get big and get rewarded for being one of these original viewers or supporters or whatever it may be. I think stuff like that's going to happen a lot more often, where it's like, okay, it's so easy to achieve distribution now, right? Like there's so many different platforms out, just even outside of crypto, like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. Like it's so easy to show your hobby or life in an interesting way and actually get paid for it.
Absolutely.
So yes, I'd love to invest in that. Going to your question, like brand building, I would just like, I look for what's not really out there, like what's underrepresented. At the time, it was like everything was a fucking NFT. So I was like, all right, one, I don't really have cool NFTs, like I'm not buying a lot. Two, like I think like if I'm gonna do this in a professional sense, I want to convey kind of a professional vibe. So, like find like a casual kind of headshot and put that up there. It's like, okay, this guy's serious, but he's also smiling, so he's maybe friendly. And but I can tell he's clean. He's not shaggy. He's not like dirty and stinky behind the computer screen. I would also say like that. Yeah, that's really important. Like, what are you trying to convey? Is it friendliness and approachability? Is it fun? Is it like edginess? And that really informs like how you create your brand. I think brands can evolve over time and they should evolve, right? Like I'd always look at your first iteration and be like, all right, as my branding improved from here, like, am I being more, am I being more thoughtful about how I'm presenting myself? And then also like certain subjects, like I think people know like I am very much like a guy who focuses like more on the fundamentals, talks about coordination, talks about like organizational structures, talks about like psychology. So I think that stuff's important as well. I'm kind of like thinking like, there's like personal brand in crypto and then there's brand elsewhere. Like I've done a lot of really conscious decisions in my life, like to kind of do that. Like one is going by the name Fig. It's like, who the fuck is named Fig? But it's really easy to remember, right? Like if I meet you guys at a party, at a dinner party, you're gonna remember my name. You're not gonna remember Thomas or Jonathan, right? Like it's like, I met this guy named Fig. Like that's so weird. And then also like the consistency, right? Like I think it's great. This is super easy stuff, but like have very similar handles, right? Across every platform if you can. Like Telegram, Twitter, Instagram, whatever you feel comfortable, like Discord, just so I can say, at Francis Gowan, and you can go find me there, right? That's really important. Consistency also with like your images, right? Like images are so engaging, right? Like letters are cool and words are cool, but people actually see images first. So like have consistent branding in terms of like the profile pictures you're using as well. And then that was like a really jumbo answer.
No, I agree. In the Web3 space, it's so important to kind of, build your reputation and stuff like that. And that's where really building your personal brand starts making so much sense. Sejal, you were saying?
No, I was just, I was laughing at whatever. It's funny also. But yeah, I'm just curious, like, because, again, I know you know so many things. I'm just curious, like, since it is morning for you, you're starting your day. How do you think about to go about your day? What is your to-do list?
So I'm starting to do it in the background. You can't tell, but that's something that's really interesting about DAOs and like this world of crypto is people are working on different time zones. So like my first priority is like catch up with the European and like APAC people who like are saying shit. Because I hate like when my voice is underrepresented. So first that's, check Slack, check Telegram, Slack, check Discord, probably in that order, or Telegram, Slack, then Discord. Telegram is kind of home for a lot of like team to outside team collaboration. That's where like, our Grants DAO team communicates. That's where like I work with other crypto companies. Slack is all internal, and then Discord is more like company to DAO or like any DeFi stuff I'm working on.
Yeah.
And then it's just, checking other shit like email and forums.
Yeah. And then it's break time. Are you a break person, or like we keep talking about internally? Like I'm someone who needs who's like a long working hours, and then break, and there are people who need break steady frequently. So what's your working style?
I'm a snack guy. I'm a lay down on the couch for 15 minutes and scroll on Instagram guy. Like, I think that stuff's great. I think also like this new world of working from home has made it a bit more like accommodating, right? Like after this, if I'm exhausted, I can go, make myself a tea and maybe watch the morning news. Like, I think that stuff's important just to like get away from sitting in the same chair all day long. I think it can kind of be exhausting doing that, but yeah, I like to. I could do a better job getting outside and like going on a walk, but fun.
Perfect. So cool. Let's jump on to our exercise that we love doing with our guests, which is a DAO Tool Roast. So I'm gonna, show you a photo of the DAO tooling landscape, the infamous photo, and I would love for you to rate your top 3 tools and roast 3 tools.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So you have to pick your top 3 tools, and then roast 3 tools.
Top 3 would be Gnosis Safe, Snapshot, and then Medium.
Okay, perfect. Okay, when you roast tools, you have to like give a reason why.
Okay, there's one tool I want to roast, but I don't see on here. And I apologize if anybody's building this, but Karma.
Oh, I've been hearing about Karma.
It's like it gives different governance contributors a rating, but it's like, all right, it's like why? It's a very isolated product. It's like, all right, Sejal, you're 720. Like, all right, cool, she's 720. What the fuck am I gonna do with that? Like, I think there's obviously like unique cases for like creating a trustworthiness scale, but Karma's not really building that. They're just ranking contributions. And 2, their like methodology isn't consistent, which doesn't like allow a lot of people to buy in to what they're building in this scale.
Right.
I would also just like the proof of humanity or like the bright ID, like that stuff, they're solving the right problem, but it hasn't really been done yet. I think like the compensation tools are great, like Superfluid, Sobier, like Utopia Labs, those are really fucking cool and important. Any of the content or discussion tools, like those are so important for building a personal brand, right? Like that's something I forget to say, like write, tweet, like just create distribution. That's the greatest way to onboard people to your name or what you're working on. I need one more to really roast.
Yes.
The bad thing is I know like everybody. I'm gonna roast Pope. I think Pope is really disillusioned I think a lot of people, because of crypto, like think that a Pope is a token. While it is in a technical standpoint, it doesn't have the same economic value as other tokens. And it's really created this behavior of like Pope farming, right? Like you see it at conferences, you see it at community calls. People's first priority is to get a Pope, right? They will sit through the first 15 minutes, and then when the code for the POAP is dropped, they'll get in, they'll leave the call. And they amass these incredible collections. I think of them more like a timeline to say, oh look, yeah, I was here and I went there and I did that. But I think unfortunately its popularity has made people think that they're going to be worth something, or they're going to be, it's going to be a receipt for a future airdrop, or entitled to a certain responsibility, but that's really not the case. And it's like creating a lot of perverse incentives.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And Fig, it was incredible to host you. I feel like we still have so many questions to ask you, so maybe we will be extremely excited to do a part 2. But thank you so much for being a phenomenal guest. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Fig, it was such a pleasure. Any ending thoughts?
No, thank you so much for having me, guys. I know it's late over there, so I'm grateful for you coming on and doing it on a Friday. I think anybody who's like curious about getting more involved in crypto and like building their own brand and starting to get paid full time, just get out there, start writing, start screaming, start thinking, and being really public about it. It's okay to fail. It's okay to not to be right. The best step is just to like get something out there. And then congrats to the DaoLens guys. Like, this is a great platform, and I'm grateful for you guys having me on. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Fig. Thank you everyone for joining. Have a lovely weekend. Bye guys. Thank you so much for joining. See you. Bye.